Hey there, we're doing something a little different today. Come along with me in the next few minutes, and we're going to be reviewing some videos of training with Mustangs that I was doing over the last few days. So, this past week, I traveled to Lompoc, California, and I was working with horses at the Return to Freedom Mustang Center and also at Las Cumbres Ranch, which is a ranch that does land conservation and also houses some of the Mustangs from Return to Freedom. We were working with horses at different levels, and I always love to take videos because in the video, not only does it help me document my process with a horse, but it also always helps me learn to go back and review those videos. That's what we're going to be doing together here. I'm going to pull up a few videos with two of the horses that I was working with. I'm going to show you just generally what the process is, what the main takeaways that I have learned working with Mustangs that I take to all of my training. And also, I'll point out some things that I see that I could have done better that I always learn when I go back and watch my own videos. Okay, let's get started. Let's begin with this little gelding, Cosmos. So Cosmos has done a little bit of this kind of work with people before. He is okay with being touched a little on his nose and around his face, but I'm a new person. This is a new day. He hadn't been worked with for a little while before this day, and I'm starting from the very basics of just tossing some hay in to get this interaction started, to get him interested in coming up to the fence. Now, again, Cosmos, besides little touches around his face, he's never been touched or petted on his body. He's never been haltered. He is truly a wild Mustang. So when I'm working in the very beginning stages like this, just getting that interaction, having them, want to come up and interact, having that communication that starts to happen through the training process, to me, is the most important. So I started by the hay tossing on the ground. Now, or next, I only did it one time, but next I put my hand out and I fed him with one hand in. And then if you'll notice, I'm feeding with two hands in. So something I have learned working with Mustangs is to be so much more aware of all of the little things because any little change for these guys, they can really notice. One hand in the pen feeding them the hay is different than two hands forward and in their pen. And what I'm working towards here is that I'm going to move to a hand target, that I have him touch my hand without the hay in, and then I give him the hay. So what I'm doing here is first just getting him used to having my hands in there and that he's coming up and then he's interacting. And then you'll see in a minute here, I'm gonna change and I'm gonna just put one hand forward. So you'll notice that the pace of this training is really slow and relaxed. So there's one hand, went forward first, he touched it, and there was our first little hand target. And then, of course, I give him the hay afterwards. I am using a marker signal here. So I'm making a sound to indicate the right moment. So there, when he touches my hand, I make that marker sound. And that's the basis of clicker training. So rhythm is such an important thing. And in the next horse that we work with, we'll talk about that and you'll see even more example of how the rhythm can be really calming and really helpful in the training process. So now with this horse, we're going to first work on putting on the halter, and then we're going to work a little bit on picking up her feet. So this is where you're going to really see this importance of rhythm and how I find a place where the horse is more comfortable and then kind of that edge where I'm working at, and I want to go back and forth between the two. So what I mean by that is you'll see here, I'll scratch like down into her neck, which is a little uncomfortable for her. That's where you'll see she continually kind of starts to pull away when I go there. But then with me either standing back or with me even just scratching at her shoulder, she's okay. So what I find is just this rhythm. I go in a little bit to where it's uncomfortable, and then I take a step back. And then I go in a bit to where it's a little uncomfortable, and I take a step back. And I want to just keep working through and again, working on that edge. And what I look for in that rhythm is that in between, when I do kind of back off a step, is what is what do I notice from the horse? Do they move in towards me? Are they constantly leaning away and moving away? And like there where she was kind of leaning away, taking a step away, looking out into the distance. Here I'm just waiting. And I waited until she just subtly came back towards me, and then I went ahead and went through the rest of the process of actually putting the halter on. But you'll see how I just gradually worked up little by little through the different steps of putting on the halter. Now in this video, we're gonna move to working on having her pick up and hold up her foot and let me move her foot. So we're preparing for having a trim. So first I'm just starting with touching around her body. And part of this is not just the touch, but it's also, again, establishing that rhythm before I start going to her feet. So I'm establishing this rhythm of I'm petting, I'm touching, and then feed, pet, touch, feed. And again, it's kind of this balance, this back and forth between what might be a little challenging for her and then going to what's easier, me stepping up to her head and feeding her. And then going down, touching her leg and picking up her hoof, and then going back to what's easy. So that I'm not just there, say, holding onto her foot and even going to the point where we would start to have a big struggle where I've got to try to hold on to it and fight her, get into a battle of strength. But it's just really slowly, step by step, doing a little bit more as she's comfortable with the previous step. So I'm always looking that, like, when I move into kind of this, we'll call it the training zone, that I'm working on the edge that is a little bit challenging for them. And sometimes with some horses, that means that I need to move a bit quicker in order to stay at that edge, that it doesn't get too repetitive and that we keep moving forward. But if I move forward too fastly, then I can push them to the point of anxiety. It's actually one of the reasons I love training with the horse free in the pen like this. She's wearing a halter, just practicing having that halter on and off, but I don't have a lead rope. She's not tied. I don't have someone holding her because it allows her to move off. And that's a really good sign for me of when it's just a bit too much for her if she does move off. And if she stays here and continues to interact, then even that can be a really good clue that I'm working in that right kind of zone of difficulty. So the main takeaways from this video, and for me as well as I'm watching this and remembering my work as I was doing this, is always have a rhythm. So again, you'll see I'm just in this back and forth, and we can take this rhythm to anything that we're doing on the ground or riding with our horses. The other is to find that level of challenge that you're moving forward and you're challenging your horse, or even applied to yourself, you're challenging yourself, but you're not doing it too quickly. And the third for me is being willing to take that break. Like even there, something startled her a little bit. She got distracted. So we took a little break and we go back into the training. I hope it was interesting and insightful for you to be able to watch my review of my training sessions and to see a little bit of the progression of training that happens with the Mustangs, but the principles that we can apply to any horse. So leave a comment for me down below and just tell me what is something that you noticed or learned through this video. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.